Yeah. Welcome to another mind-expanding episode of Quantum Canine. Hi, Kevin.
Canine Consciousness Awareness
Training. Yeah, that's right. Canine Consciousness Awareness Training. I thought we'd start out today by telling a little story that happened to me. I was walking with a friend in the woods, in my woods, and we walked pretty far into the woods, and he said, "Why is there a dog cable in the middle of the woods? What's that for?" And I said, "Oh, that's where we put the dogs to teach them, to get really energized about biting something." And he said, "Why would you want to teach a dog to bite something?"
Right.
And I said, "Well, they're always going to want to bite something. You just want to teach them what to bite, when to bite, and how to bite, so you can keep that feeling. You want to honor the feeling, but you want to keep the behavior coherent." Was I correct in my assessment there?
Yes, you were. Very nice.
So
dogs don't learn concepts, but they learn by contrast. So a lot of people are concerned about biting, and they teach dogs not to bite, which is incidentally why we have more biting dogs now than ever.
So you look at the way that people raise their
when
puppies.
the idea came up, there's this idea in the market about bite inhibition, where people are training their puppies not to bite, not to ever put canine ivory on human flesh. That is a huge taboo. And that's really that'd be like teaching a baby not to hug its parent. They use their mouth for everything, and I let my puppies nosh on my hand, and when they grow up, they're not going to bite me. To link those two together is silly. And but dogs use their jaws like we use our hands, and grabbing something with their jaws is the primal form of grounding. So if you teach your dog where to bite, what to bite, when to bite, why to bite, and how to bite, you're actually teaching him not to bite all of the places.
All the other places that he could
So
bite.
Muhammad Ali was probably a tough kid on the streets of Louisville, Kentucky, and some cop saw this tough kid and said, "Hey," at the time his name was Cassius, "come with me to the ring." And he taught him where to hit people, how to hit people, when to hit people, why you hit people, and what to hit. Therefore, he grew up to be a perfectly outstanding citizen. Not only that, but I could probably say any kind of horrible thing at him in his prime, and he wouldn't hurt me because he's so confident. He knew what to do with his energy, so it wouldn't be with some punk. He never got in any trouble.
So it seems like the trouble with biting, first it starts with our concept that somehow it's bad.
Right.
And then what I think it's got to be in every training book except yours is yell at your dog for biting.
Right.
And when it jumps on you, push it away and do this. And that causes all kinds of behavioral problems. What have you seen out of that?
Well, if your dog doesn't love to bite, it needs to bite. And that's always going to be bad. Now, 9 out of 10 dogs will need to bite, but they won't bite a person. But it'll come up in some other weird thing. Could be noise phobia, all kinds of things. Annoying things. Maybe not dangerous things, but annoying things. And then they'll blame that on the dog, when in fact it goes back to the early imprint that was taught the dog.
So the first problem is we're teaching the dogs, we're scolding the dog for just a natural tendency to connect with things. Is that what you see biting is?
Right, and other things, the other source of biting is people overstimulate the dog, and they walk into the room, and they make such a fuss over the dog, so they get him so unnecessarily excited, he has to bite something, then they tell him no. Instead of just walking into the presence of the dog, calmly massaging him so he feels grounded in a higher form, which is tactile grounding as opposed to oral. So the dogs don't outgrow their oral puppy phase. It turns into a whole body, or orgasmic phase, if you will, where they just, by being touched, they feel as if they're gripping you. And that's why they don't bite when they get older, is because they can just be near you and feel connected.
Okay, so we have the scolding for the biting, and we have the overstimulation, which I myself am guilty of, as you know, because my puppy would bite my legs just walking around, and then she went and stayed with you for a while, and she never bit your legs because you weren't talking to her in a very high voice and super stimulating her.
Right.
And then when she came back, I just stopped all that talking, and she's never bitten me at all ever since.
Exactly,
so the first step is what you're saying is to
realize if you have a biting problem, you caused it. The owner caused it somehow, either the overstimulation or the active repression. Either one is going to cause it.
Now, people get pretty. We've seen it when we've done seminars. When you started the bite work, people get very afraid when they see that happening. What's that all about?
Well, animals run on emotion, just as we do. And 99% of our mental life is controlling emotion, if not 99.99%. We want to control emotion because it's scary. It's wild energy. It's the part of us that's not domesticated. And it's not domesticatable, it's not tameable, it's not conditionable. It is our nature in us. So when we see animals acting naturally, our intellectual apprehension of how things should be gets challenged.
It feels very uncomfortable.
It can, yeah, because it's like letting the genie out of the box, and we're afraid of all the ramifications. So I grew up being very comfortable with it, being in the dog business, so it's hard for me even to understand it. It'd be like something, like if I see horses moving around a lot, I feel broken toes.
Right,
but if you're really into horse, like my wife loves horses.
Right.
She sees the spirit of horse. She just can't wait to get on it.
Right.
I do not understand that.
Right.
You know, some people are excited by that because they're comfortable with it.
Right.
So I can appreciate that with the dogs. There's nothing a dog can do that unnerves me.
Well, you grew up with your father,
Yeah, so I
trained
grew up
dogs
with it.
for protection work, and you
Right.
saw them biting all the time, and it just seemed like a natural part of what dogs did.
Right.
But people get a dog now, they bring it inside, they super stimulate it, it's biting everything, it's chewing things up, and they get all freaked out. They think they have to suppress it, and then it
Right.
comes out in all these other ways. And the way that you solve it is going back to the beginning of the conversation: is what put coherency to the desire to bite.
Yeah.
And we have a couple clips of you showing that. So we'll run a couple of clips showing you doing a little bit of bite work, just the beginning, with
Right.
some dogs that you have out at your farm. We hope we have the clip. We think we have the clip. Here we go.
Quantum.
It's quantum, right?
Yeah, this is an amazing young dog, tons of energy, has to bite. So I'm softening her around the bite toy
Out.
and teaching her to let go as a function, getting more energy by listening to the word out. Not out doesn't mean denial, it means more is coming. And now she's learning how to align with me in terms of this desire. So, you know, if we were to see a deer or something, that would totally excite her to bite something. So I'm giving her the same thing. Here's potential energy. I'm in a poised position. That triggers her projecting her physical center of gravity into that.
That was
And
good.
you want to
Ed.
connect with her mouth. And she gets to bite it. And if I can get her to carry it up on things, she's getting very calm about it.
Okay, that's a perfect exercise.
Yeah.
That's
I
great.
think we'll get some footage.
So that's what you really use to solve problems.
Yeah, usually when that dog sees people or dogs, it just totally gets wired and frazzled. So that's ungrounded energy. So the biting is grounding the energy.
And you're also, we talked a little bit last time, we talked the whole time, the last episode, about how the dog projects
Right.
its center of gravity into the object of attraction, and
Right.
also how what it doesn't have in its mouth is more attractive to than what it does have.
Potential.
The potential energy
Right.
is better than the energy it has. And
Right.
so that's why you're saying, when you say out, you're not denying the dog something.
Right. There's a better one coming.
And maybe you could explain how you use the bite toy or the stick walking in the woods with the dog and with the deer coming.
All right, so if I see a deer, I might have that bite toy hidden back at the property, and I'll take the dog into the woods, and we'll run across a deer or a bird or whatever, some big prey animal, and the dog will see the deer and get all excited, and I won't say bad dog, I won't say sit, I'll say good dog, look at that deer. And then I'll take a step toward the deer will bolt, the dog will bolt at the deer. Now, if I make contact with a dog, I know what's going to happen next, but at any rate, I run the other way. I might have to have the dog on a long leash if I don't know the dog that well. But if it's my young dog, I'll go the other way. And he'll go 10 steps towards the deer. The deer is flying, and whoa, where's Kevin? He felt attracted to me because I was petting him. Good boy, get that deer, get that deer.
I see.
So he's like giving me credit for his attraction to the deer. And then he starts at the deer is running, and I'm going the other way. So he'll go a few steps toward the deer, but he's not old enough to follow through on it. He'll turn around and see me running away. So now the 200,000 volts that he feels for the deer, he can transfer onto me because I'm running away, just like the deer is. And when he catches up to me, I run to the tree where the bite toy is, and he gets to bite the heck out of that toy. That's what bringing a deer to ground feels like. So he gives me credit. He listens to me and brought that energy to ground. Now, this is where it's important to go into what is a dog's sense of self. That it doesn't matter to the dog that he didn't get that deer. It only matters to the dog that he felt grounded in terms of that energy.
So when you say felt grounded in terms of that energy, meant he feels a pull of desire, he wants something, the energy's flowing, and he's able to bring it to ground,
Right.
by biting something.
By biting something.
So
that would be the most primal expression of that. Yeah. So he got to bite this sleeve, fought with me over it, and I said, "Oh, what a good doggy!" And he got to strut around with the sleeve in his mouth. His tail is high. Good doggy. Then I take the sleeve away. That's what killing a deer feels like. Who does he give credit for that? Me.
Right.
I became part of that feeling.
And so now you're even more attractive.
Now when eventually he sees the deer, he looks at me.
Right.
And I had a really cool example where I was walking down the trail. Now my dog is a mature dog, and there's a deer eating an apple last fall, 20 yards off the trail looking at us, and it didn't run, which is amazing. They're getting very bold, the deer. And I just pet Hessian. I didn't want to go through the whole training. Good dog. And let's keep going. So we just kept walking. On the way back from the trail, the deer was still there.
Oh my God.
And Hessian didn't even look at it. We just walked right by it. He could care less that the deer was there. So it didn't have a pull on him because he gave me all that energy, all these events, all these times.
Because you had been through you had done the whole
rigmarole
circuit a bunch of times,
young, yeah.
right?
And you play with him periodically, so just a word after a while can become grounding.
That's amazing. And you haven't done that by sublimating desire.
Exactly.
You've done that by satisfying desire,
right.
which is different from what everybody else is doing in the
Right,
marketplace.
so when he sees deer, he's more attracted to me when there aren't deer there. That deer energy comes to me.
It really is amazing to see. It's almost like seeing is believing.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a dog that's been trained that way and they see something, they see a cow that they've never seen before, a horse, and because you've gone through the whole thing, and they look at you.
Right.
And you think, wow, it's like magic.
Yeah. It's emotional alchemy.
Yeah, it's really an incredible.
It's something that doesn't, and that's actually what Pavlov discovered, is you can take something neutral, emotionally neutral, such as the metallic ringing of a bell, and integrate it with the actual visceral response to food. So the ringing of the bell made the dog salivate.
Because it felt like it was
felt like he was
eating,
actually ingesting the food.
Which is the same thing as the dog actually feels like it's killing a deer by
Exactly.
going through that whole thing.
Right. So I'm not telling him not to kill a deer. I'm telling him what to do with deer killing energy, which eventually just turns into cooperation under my control. But I like to use this way of explaining the distinction between what I'm talking about and those other two models that we alluded to earlier. The old models are control the dog so that it does what you want. And even behavioral sciences will control the dog's environment so it does what you want. A more sophisticated way of saying basically the same thing. What I'm saying is the dog is in control by doing what I want. So the dog gets what it wants, energy. I get what I want, total control. The best part is you don't have to control the dog after a while because it innately just goes with the flow.
Right.
Now that sounds really and truly magical, but if you think about it, all society works that way. You can't live with someone if you have to control them.
No, that's true.
It's too hard. If you actually have to control people you live with, it's like high maintenance.
Yeah, it sucks your
energy. So
energy.
you should not have to control a dog. It's too much work to have to control a dog. So I prefer to take more time in the beginning and get the foundation so the dog is in control by doing what I want. You have to be, it's very organized how you do that first year of the dog's life. But after that, they have the life of Riley. It's just a really nice way to live with a dog.
It really is. Now I'm on my second one,
Right.
doing that way, and it's really amazing. They're just so easy to live with.
Exactly, yeah.
Until they discover the food on the counter, but we won't go into that. So we have a clip of you doing the beginning, playing with a toy with a puppy. I thought would be interesting to showing how you do that with the little one. We think we have the clip.
Right.
Again, we're talking about quantum mechanics here.
Well, yeah, it's all probability.
It's
Nothing
potential.
can be said with certainty.
Potential energy.
Okay, so yeah, here's your little dog. Now she, I mean, she just has such an appetite for life. I mean, you have it. Look at that dog. She's got that heavy sleeve as deep into her mouth as she can.
He does.
So that totally completes her mind. When we go slow, she starts to shake it. That means things are bogging down. So I want to get her running with it, and her whole body to loosen up when she moves. And little by little, shape her to the box. That becomes her place. Going to the box, isolating a feeling to a place is halfway to giving it up.
Look at her. Piranha.
Yeah, look at that. Now the question is, can you soften that? So there's the food. No. Now I know I could overpower her and take that sleeve away, but that's not coming from within the dog. I want it to make sense to the dog why it should let go. Because there's more coming.
Oh, that's fascinating. So why did she let go?
Well, if you notice, I cranked up a little bit over her head, so she started to get less hunger, more balance, and she started getting nervous, so she let go, because we don't want nervousness part of that. So it made total sense to her to let it go.
So the next little piece of this, what we were talking about, is the dog being in control and not using force, because if you have to always constantly be, sort of putting the structure over the dog, it's just so much energy.
Yeah, what you're going to find out is you got to put more energy into containment. It's going to take more and more repression to get less and less return. It's the law of diminishing returns. You put more energy to build a stronger lid on the box, but sooner or later it's all going to come out.
So with a puppy, a small puppy, to get it to be aligned with you in the beginning, you have a particular way of interacting with it in the yard. We were going to show that, how you were saying you don't whistle for it, you don't, call for it. In the beginning, the puppy will just follow you. Mm-hmm. But then as other things get more attractive, then you sort of have to kind of start working.
Right. Exactly. In the beginning, you're the most exciting thing on the face of the earth. But it's not meant to be that way 2 years down the road. So you have to actually do things to make sure you always remain the most exciting thing on the face of the earth.
So hopefully we'll be able to bring up this clip of you walking in the backyard with the puppy, and you were showing me what I should do just when I let her out of her puppy yard, and how to keep the energy flowing in the right way.
Okay, so this dog is all excited to come out. Now, I'm not going to put any demand on her, and she's going to run around and investigate. And I have the food. It's going to be her meal.
Right, this is the only way she eats all day long.
And now we talked earlier about that settle response. So when she settles herself down, it magically brings the food into her mouth. So what she's learning is, if I settle myself, I get what I want.
She's popping up and down because she's young, right?
Exactly. Well, this is the first time we've ever done this with her. So she's going to waste a lot of energy because she doesn't get it. They don't get it in one thing, but she pops over, she lays down. I'm not saying... Now, eventually, if I want to control her after I've created this imprint, I'll be reminding her of hundreds of these choices she's already made. So I'm just reminding her of a choice she made earlier. And then we cemented it, made it really strong. And I'm also backing her up a little bit to neutralize that forward crash energy she's got going on.
Right. Well, you were talking about that before, about how the front shoulders always want to go forward.
Yeah. Now, so that's that lay down on the trail when you see the deer coming energy. And at first has a lot to do with how high the food is relative to her. Now, little by little, she's also learning to align with me by how I position that food. You can think of that food as a magnet, and her physical center of gravity as a steel ball that's inside her gut. So how I move that food moves that magnet, that steel ball, and I'm getting her to reference that her physical center of gravity and a line around it. You can see her
Yeah,
pivot
that's
on her rear
amazing.
end.
Yeah, how she's pivoting like that.
Right. And she's teaching herself how to heal, how to down, how to stay, how to heal at high energy. She's putting all her energy into learning this. I'm not telling her not to have energy. I'm allowing her to learn what to do with her energy, so she's doing it without conflict. She doesn't have the patience yet. That's the real learning is cultivating the patience. When she gets good, now she's starting to volunteer the down. And that's going to evolve into healing, where I'll reward her before she even lays down. So she's going to learn, if I just stay near Kevin's side, that's how I get the food. So animals learn to move their body to change how objects of attraction make them feel. So that's what I'm allowing her to learn, how to move her body to change how that object of attraction makes her feel.
And you're creating an imprint.
Right, that becomes an imprint.
It would have to do with movement and aligning with how you move.
When I get that imprint fully developed, I will then attach a word to it, such as heal or down or stay.
And that's what confuses people a lot. They don't understand. They ask, like, well, how do you do that? You say, well, you get the behavior perfect, and then you attach a word to it, and that doesn't make sense to anybody at all.
Yeah, well, I like to use the example of teaching a child to work as a good way of understanding that. That first, you say to the child, would you like to sweep the room? And here's a quarter. But you got to reward the child every second, every time. Here's a quarter, they sweep the room. And then one day you say to the child, how about if you sweep the room every day, and in 5 days I'll give you real money, paper money plus the quarter. So you get $1.25, and here's a paper dollar.
Right.
And now the child's willing to work 5 days for nothing and get that big tangible reward at the end. So, and then when the child masters that, we say, okay, now it's your responsibility to sweep the floor. So first we allow them to master the behavior before we make them accountable. And you don't actually have to demand it at first. You really shouldn't. You shouldn't command the child to sweep the floor. First they have to understand mastery, how to do it, and then defer gratification. Then you could say, okay, now it's your job to do it.
So you teach them how to do it first.
Mm-hmm. And you get that deferred gratification. And then finally you say, now you have to do it. And you get a salary. We'll pay you twice every 2 weeks. And then that's how we grow up. I never know where my next paycheck is coming from. It's all commission, basically.
Right.
So, but I have no doubt that sooner or later it will come, But, so you have to master that deferred gratification first. Then you can make it a responsibility. Then you can demand it. But your demand is really just reminding the person of their earlier choice, which is why we have job descriptions. You write out the description of the job before someone takes it, before you offer it, before someone does it. Then they get into the job, and it's been a great job for a couple months, but then, oops, you got to do this.
I didn't know I was supposed to do that.
And then you look it up.
I don't know how to do that. Right.
Can you imagine those guys? I mean, after 9/11, they joined the National Guard, Vermont, New Hampshire, and they find themselves in Afghanistan.
Right, exactly.
Or Iraq. I mean, but it does say on the fine print, there is a reason we're teaching you how to shoot the M16.
Right.
And, everybody went.
Right.
Because it was their choice.
You reminded them of their
reminded them of their choice.
Right.
So it's a powerful thing, choice. So first you got to get the dog to choose to do what you want because the dog wants to do it. And then you can demand it. But even that demand isn't really a command. It's reminding them of an earlier choice they made.
And I think some people would look at what you're doing and say, well, you're just rewarding good behavior.
They do say that, but then those same people talk about high value rewards, which means there's some kind of value system. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there is some kind of value system, and it's all predicated on group hunting. And the dog is overcoming resistance to get what it wants. And that's potential energy that has no rhyme or reason to it anyhow. So if you carry the operant conditioning logic out, it's really contradicting itself. It's saying, we're just looking at behavior. That which reinforces is a reinforcement. But then they say there's such a thing as high-value reinforcements. Well, what's that value system? They either have to invent a psychology, which is human reason, or you have to understand this energy model that I'm talking about. So if you have a strong force of desire, which is not random, it's coherent, it's discrete, it's goal-oriented, and if you provide that goal, then it loves to work. And the beauty is it doesn't need reinforcement after a while. Once you get that pump going, the pump will go just to move energy.
And just to simplify it again, it's just basically built on the model of the wolf or the dog wanting the moose.
Right.
Has to overcome the resistance of those huge horns, has to overcome the resistance of that big nose, and it has to bite into the skin and the muscle to bring it down.
And it doesn't even have the force of jaws like a cat does to destroy by the biting. It doesn't. It has to absolutely wear it out.
And it has to work in cooperation with other beings.
It has to work with others of the same like desire.
And you're doing the same thing with the dog by creating that imprint.
Exactly. So like I said, my background is police dog training, and these dogs were loose in the woods. There were deer bounding, squirrels scurrying. They could care less. They were so tuned into looking for the missing person, the tracking the criminal, and we had, I had my people hiding, and a deer would come right up to them. The dog would find the person. The deer would go bounding. The dog would look at the deer. Hey, so what? And find that person, and they find the handler and bring us to the person, and that was more fun for them than chasing that deer. And and also with the dogs doing the bite work, we could have a female dog in heat, they could care less. They would rather do the work. So I started to realize that there was this drive that was much stronger than survival or reproduction. But it followed its own laws, and that's what I've been studying.
Sort of is anti-Darwinian, and yet you really believe in evolution.
I'm the only one who really believes in evolution.
Right.
Everyone else is inventing a psychology of genes, an evolutionary psychology, which is an oxymoron. I believe that evolution of organisms follows the laws of nature. It's the only thing that makes sense.
And you don't believe that that's survival of the fittest?
No, that's a human rationale. That an animal has no concept of survival. I dare say its genes don't have any concept of replication either. There's some other organizing principle, which is we're starting to get to with emergence theory, and there's a theory of evolution called symbiogenesis. So there's many new ways of thinking of evolution that are coming online now, and so I believe no matter which theory ends up prevailing, since my theory of behavior is based on energy, it'll be perfectly consonant with our deepening understanding of evolution as a function of energy.
So in order to make it not sound so esoteric, you say your theory is an energy theory, and you're just saying that is it the same thing as just water goes downhill?
Well, that's part of it.
Energy moves. Energy needs to move in a certain way.
It has to move in a certain way, and it has to add new energy to the system, otherwise it's going to die. Won't evolve.
So that's what evolution is.
That's what evolution is behavior adding new energy to the whole network. So the organisms aren't competing with each other. They're working together to add new energy. It's the only thing that makes sense.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, so what we call competition is actually friction to make new energy. And we've mislabeled it. We missed the purpose of it.
And that's what you're talking about with the wolves, with all that pack behavior.
Right.
So it looks like friction.
It looks like competition. It looks like dominance and submission, but it's increasing a net charge. And they're attracted to each other with more energy than they can consummate by being social and companionable.
They got to go out and kill something.
They got to go out and overcome a huge thing of resistance, which will be the moose, the muskox. I mean, you should look at a formation of muskox on a nature channel. They have these pointy horns. They weigh 1,200 pounds, and they're impenetrable ring. And yet those wolves have some cockamamie idea of sinking their teeth into them.
Right.
Even if they're well fed on moles and voles and rabbits, they still want to go after that muskox. So it's a force of desire. It's so powerful. But they're doing the work of nature. They're forcing the muskox to evolve. My father had a herd of polled heifers. And they'd have their cows out. They could care less what their calves were doing. It was really a non-coherent herd. And one day I was testing my control over a very fierce dog, and it wasn't what it should have been. And he attacked he nailed a cow, and they went on a Wild West rodeo for 20, 30 minutes. I'm fortunate nobody got killed. This was back in the era of the Pinto and the little
God.
gremlin, so
Right.
this herd was going back and forth over our little country road, and we could have easily crushed a car. At any rate, after that event, I finally got the dog off the cow. After that event, because it was really cool, after 20 minutes of being chased, finally the herd formed up into a formation. The bull withdrew and started to ram the dog, which is how I was able to catch up to it. Ultimately, it would have killed the dog, but I got there in time. But they started acting like a herd after that. They started keeping close contact with the calves and not letting them wander out of sight. It was really amazing watching them become like coherent. They started forming up on a regular basis in the in their area. So it was really a vivid demonstration to me how these big old lazy old cows, they still had it in them. They had the muskox in them. They needed that charge put on them.
They evolved in response to the
They
dog.
evolved. They had a higher degree of care for their young after that dog event.
Which all this just goes to show you, people think all dogs need is love, and obviously
Love does work.
Love is never going to get you there, though.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
No.
Love
is designed to do work. So heart, a better word for how heart works in nature is courage, not love. And the common understanding of it.
And courage is rage of the heart.
Right.
Right. And so
Doing work so that the network can grow. So the animal is invested with a charge. When you saw and when you see Hero or Katya on the tape, and you see them bite that sleeve, there is a force of desire there that you shouldn't fight. That is animal abuse to fight that, to deny that to the dog. You have to give it to them. And believe it or not, that's how cooperation comes. That's how all the beautiful part of love flows from that. It follows from that. So you can't just love a dog like that and do it any favor. You've got to get it working, and then it'll love you for that. That's love.
That's a great place to stop, Kevin.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Quantum Canine.